Good afternoon, LinkedIn. Happy Friday again. Double dose of Let's Build Daily today. Another special guest, RevOps Rob, Robert Smith. How you doing, man?
Good. Glad that we could finally make this work, Chris, after the technical difficulties yesterday. But yeah, it's a
Yeah,
great Friday. Two for today for you.
indeed. StreamYard wasn't friendly yesterday, and I try to keep it positive and say, I had without any testing or a lot of backup plans. I was able to do, 60, 70 shows without any problems at all. So it's probably due. And that's why we're back at it today. Stuff happens, tech happens. But yeah, we're here today to talk about one of our favorite pieces of tech, HubSpot, and all this data that the system makes available out of the box is really powerful, but sometimes it leaves some gaps, especially the farther away you get from marketing and sales. So Rob is joining today to talk about how he was able to take a lot of ticketing information related to the record, create some new properties, create some new workflows to create more visibility for the team. And let's start there, Rob. Like, what was happening, or what were you trying to see in HubSpot that that prompted the team to say, "Hey, this we're not getting what we need. We need to do some customizations, and we're going to build some other stuff."
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've been managing a retention pipeline for a while now, and just like anything, you continuously build and improve it. And we've had a pretty good tracking system for how we log dates and whatnot in the process that we go through. But the issue is things happen, and a lot of the times when you're recording things like churn, you get things like credit card declines that come in on renewal dates, or people get sent on pause, or they talk about canceling, but then all of a sudden their card turns off and their projected, end date might be different. And a lot of times you have to backlog those dates. And if you have a lot of accounts moving in and out, it can get quite messy. And a lot of times we come in and look at retention, it might be for coming up, or it might be looking at previous quarters. And the numbers would change, and it would be this whole hunting game of figuring out what account, why, and the reasons were all over the place, right? Sometimes it was just an account manager simply entering a date incorrectly. It happens. Or there was a process that just wasn't followed properly. Or again, there's a credit card decline that comes in, and again, it's hard to capture that churn date on that said credit card decline, especially if it's around their renewal date. It's hard to really predict. So then you're having to go backwards, but you need a reason and explanation for why that is. So that's why we started creating it. And then also, you know, making sure that if those adjustments were made, they were correct. Because again, if we're backlogging, we really want to make sure that if we're changing previous retention dates, that we are very accurate with changing it, essentially. So
Okay.
that's how this project came about, where we started building everything out to help combat that, essentially.
So when it was originally, sounds like we're talking about a churn date property. Is that right?
Correct. And that could be close date. It could be anything, essentially. I think
Okay.
for the simplicity of this, when I say churn date, I just mean the close date on the ticket that is entered.
Okay.
Um, for our business process system, just to be clear, when someone whispers about canceling or they submit something through, let's say, our dashboard, a ticket is created, and that's where the process begins.
Okay. So it sounds like we got like a cancellation request of some sort,
Correct.
right? And so this is just a common, process map that I pull up that uh even though I've never targeted SaaS, tends to apply to a lot of different businesses too, but this is definitely a SaaS focused process. But we've got this cancellation request. Sounds like in your case, it if yes, we're opening up a ticket and there's some ticket process related stuff that's going on, right?
True, and there are instances, of course, when credit card declines do happen, and then that is something that we create ourselves. Our retention manager, when they see, hey, you know, the credit card has declined 4 times in the past month, that's when you start creating a retention ticket and logging that as well, because that could be potential churn also.
Okay, so this failed payment is something that could be, it takes the place of the like active human cancellation request, sounds like,
Correct.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's where
So
the issues sometimes occur. So
okay. So in that case, we are using close date um to determine, okay, at this time, like all their access has been shut off and uh the cancellation has finished.
correct,
Is that right? Okay.
correct.
But we
So
had some, so that was uh one of the classic cases of you can move it into like the last stage, which is going to set the close date. But then even after you do that, uh, people make mistakes, or I forgot to close it last week, so I'm going to close it now, and then I need to manually edit the date. But you said, it wasn't, something wasn't, it didn't smell right with all these close date changes that were happening. Is that right?
yeah, absolutely. And when you finally find out, the reasons always vary, and there's only so much you can do to perfect the CRM system. It's really good to have dashboards where you can start seeing some possible discrepancies in your data that might not be correct, right?
Right. Yep. So you're seeing some discrepancies. And so what was the next step for you guys to dig into this?
So, in terms of building it out, or just conceptually.
I think I usually like to start conceptually first, and then once we understand what's going on, we probably build some stuff out.
Yeah. So, you got to know the essentially who, what, when, where, why. And so you have to start thinking of, well, this is not a static ticket. It always moves. With that close date, you don't have a previous log. So how do you do that, right? Well, you can't do it if they change it, because by then the property is already going to change. So you need to initially stamp it in the back end the first time to enter the close date. And then you also have to think of, okay, now we have that stamped. What is the date of that update as well? And then you also have to think of, if updated, okay, what was the previous close date and what is the current one? So you can start seeing in your reports, you can actually start tallying up the differences. So right now, if there's any changes, I can see the dates that they're executed and what the original amount was in a certain time frame. So I could look at a report and see what the churn difference was a week ago, essentially. And
Okay.
so what we had to do is first build out properties that could support those workflows to be made.
Okay. I think I don't know if I have any tickets in this portal, but we can make one really quick. Yeah, let's make an example ticket first, because I think there's something to highlight, that this is something that where the information kind of exists, like when you go to property history, right? If you really dig in manually, but it's pretty hard to surface that, right? Anywhere else. So,
Yeah,
but what's the name of a usual ticket?
let's do, I like to do brackets for all of my ticket categorization. So I do bracket RET for retention. And then I usually just do a company name. So for this instance, we could do company A, I guess you could
Let's
say.
do, let's
Let's build it.
build media. All right, and we'll just stick with our support pipeline, but we might have different pipelines here. Sounds like this is like a cancellation or churn pipeline. And we got new. Do you guys have any? How do you get? I always find this interesting, especially with tickets. Like this is
It's
where HubSpot, has designed this object for help desk, right? So this makes sense for that on some level, but as soon as you try to use it for like some project management or like stuff like that, like we're talking about here, like you completely change the way you start to look at, the stages, right?
Yeah, and it really just depends on, what you're trying to get out of it. For us, it needs to be very straightforward and simple with the statuses. If you want to see more of the nitty-gritty details, we like to just have those properties to go off of after. So for this, we typically do, I believe, 3 or 4 stages. The first one is pending review, which is every time a ticket gets entered, even if it has a close date, I need the retention manager to review it and make sure that dates are correct and they have all the information to help tackle that said account. Then we have projected cancel, which is okay, we have in the books, they're potentially canceling, and then you put in their date. And then you have a status for account lost, right? And essentially that indicates not just that date is hit, but also you have to turn off everything like their dashboard, their billing, etc. And again, we have to be, unless it's a credit card decline, if they're actually talking about canceling, we have to be a month ahead. So, if they cancel a month from now, we can't bill them on that same renewal date. You have to cancel a month before typically, unless it's let's say an annual subscription.
Right.
And then obviously we have account retained, which is if we work the account and they said, okay, we'll continue, then we have that status as well. But
Okay.
that's as far as it goes for a retention pipeline.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and won't fill in a bunch of this data because I really want to show. So if we add our close date here, all right, I'll just bring this to the top, save, right? And I make this change. All right, I'll say 628. Now we can look at details and start to see a history, right?
Right.
And anytime I change this or like an integration changes it, or, maybe the payment is set up to update this field, right? We could see a history in here if it's like a one-time thing that we need to dig into, right? But it sounds like you're
Right.
trying to have a regular understanding of any and all changes related to this field. Is that correct?
Right. And the thing is, you can't, if you wanted, let's say you have churn for, let's say, May, and it's set out and it changes, you have to go through the tickets and find the record details for each one or pull up. I believe you can export the ticket, right, and see original close date history possibly. But that is a pain. So now I can just literally pull up those reports. And again, if you guys check out my Substack article, you'll see different types of reporting and how it mathematically adds up and just a simple change log as well.
Right.
So, it's great. I love that feature. But again, you have to go hunting. And when you're with an executive team who wants to go looking through tickets, it's really not good. And it's actually slightly embarrassing, to be quite frank.
None of them do. That's for sure.
Right.
And the fact that you got them to like care about a change log too is pretty impressive. But that speaks to the power here, right? If the visibility they get through that change log like matters to them, they're going to love it. So which properties did we create to try and close this gap?
Yeah, so there's going to be 3. So just to say them out loud, the first one is going to be, I do brackets. We'll just do it so it's easy to see. Date of update, and then I do close date after the brackets. And so the purpose of this is it tracks when the close date was last updated. This property helps logging and timestamping changes. And again, you'll have that full list. So you go, hey, this number changed in the last week. Let me go see which accounts were updated in the last week. You have a report log that shows which ones were updated.
Okay. And what kind of, are we a date picker?
It's going to be a date. These are all going to be date ones.
Okay. Property rules.
I've always wanted to use these, but I haven't found, dates can go anywhere. So you're good with this. Right. And then we'll talk about the locked properties later if we have time.
Yeah.
So next one, current close date. So this is the one where no matter what, anytime you enter the close date, this is going to get logged, including the initial entry. It's going to put this in the back end. This one really isn't used for reporting as much as it is just to keep, the data in the back end for how to make this workflow work.
Okay. So go ahead and create that. And then we
All
got
right.
one more.
Previous close date. And this stores the previous close date for any updates. This property preserves the historical close date for comparing and auditing purposes. It's not going to show on your first entry, right? So it's anytime it's been updated, the close date, that's when this workflow will hit and that will update.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Now where to from here?
Now we got to build the workflows.
Awesome.
So there's going to be 2 sections. And again, we need to understand the process and whatnot, but it's rather simple. The most time consuming part of this is probably just accommodating the reports for what you need,
Yep. So we're going ticket based here?
Yeah, we're going ticket based.
All right. And blank?
Yeah.
Okay, next.
So for this one, do we want to put a fun name for it? Initial entry of close date.
Initial entry of close date.
All right. So the enrollment part is very important. Not that it never isn't. So for this one, we're going to do a few. So we're going to do when filter criteria is met. Ticket properties. So we're going to do 3. So first is close date. Just the regular close date is known.
Okay.
And then the second criteria is and. You see, right there.
Yep.
And do date of, after you get ticket properties, date of update is unknown. And again, you can do it for previous close date as well. But this is important because now it's knowing that it's the initial entry. And then I think that's it. We just also want to note that do not turn on re-enrollment for this because it's a one-time thing.
All right. So that's off.
So make sure that's off.
And
we're good to go with that.
Cool.
Yep.
All
right. Now we're going to delay just in case someone went, oopsie, that's the wrong date. So I would say, guys, if you want to be perfect, I say 5 minutes because there's no rush. I don't think much is going to change in those 5 minutes. But for this, we could just do a minute just for the heck of it. And essentially what that's saying, guys, is, if you enter something incorrect, the person has the time to change it and not have it already pushed through the workflow, right? Because then you're just getting incorrect data.
I think delay is probably one of the most underrated actions in workflows.
Yeah, it can make or break your idea. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So now we got to set the property value. So we're going to set the property, under CRM. We're going to set ticket property set is date of update. It's going to be this ticket still. And then we're going to do date of step.
Okay.
And then we're going to do the second part, which is copying that close date to the current close date. And again, guys, that's what we were talking about earlier, which is logging anything that you set initially.
So we're setting current close date?
Yeah.
All right. And that is also data step?
It's copy property value, excuse me.
Copy property value. Yep. There we go.
Cool. And then that's going to be the regular old close date.
To current close date.
Yep. And that's it. That's our first one. It's
all right.
Completely finished. And then for this one, let's see. So you don't want to enroll current tickets with this one, guys, because it's just going to date stamp today is the date of update if it meets the criteria. So it's not really going to be accurate. This is going to have to be for moving on tickets unless you can export all those, previous close date properties and throw it in. This is really just moving forward.
And I think we're keeping most of this other stuff off. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good to go with the rest of it.
Alrighty.
There's some great stuff in there too, though. This is pretty new, you know.
They've been doing so much of this lately. It's hard not to get carried away sometimes.
I know.
All right, but we got this guy's on.
Numeral dos. So for this one, we're going to do another ticket-based one. Blank workflow. Let's name this guy update and log changes to close date.
Alrighty.
All right. Enrollment trigger. So filter criteria is met. And we're going to do ticket properties. So this one is subjective. 0 days I think does work, but it doesn't really display. So we're going to do close date has been updated in the last day.
Close date.
Right, the one right below. Yep. And I believe 0 days works, but I like to do 1 day because if someone updated it in the same day, I really don't. It's rare that you're going to notice those changes.
Or that they're going to impact much of the process otherwise, right?
Yeah. If you change the date in the same day, it's not like anyone's really going to notice. It needs to be within at least a day past.
Right.
Okay, so now we've got one more, I believe. Yes. Date of update. We're going to have to add that. So click and. Date of update. It was more than 1 day ago.
Man, I remember when none of these, there's like 4 options, like,
right.
Like 20 in this drop down. So more than 1 day ago.
Because you can do in between now too. So you could do more and less, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Amazing how much progress has been made in the last year, even.
Yeah. And we'll talk about re-enrollment, but maybe we'll do that at the end.
Okay.
So now we'll do another delay. So again, guys, for safekeeping, I would always recommend the 5 minutes, but we'll just do it for 1 minute just in case we run through this to see if it works. All right. So now this is where we do copy the current close date to the previous close date. And remember, guys, this has to be the very first thing that happens for this to work. Otherwise, it's going to be overridden for the previous.
So just confirm we're copying current close date to previous close date.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. Save. Okay.
Let's do just one more delay.
One minute. Okay.
All right. Now you're just going to copy the property value. You're going to copy close date to current close date.
Okay. I see what's going on here.
It's mapping out for you?
Yeah.
You got one more.
Okay.
So now we just got to set date of update, right? Anytime anything happens, we got to log when it was updated. Unless, again, it's been within the same day. And so for this, we'll do set.
And we don't need to worry about a delay here. Or should we?
No, it'll just go in congruence with the copy close date to current.
Cool. So set date of update, right?
Mm-hmm.
And date of step.
You got it. Now we got to do re-enrollment for this.
All right.
So this is very important, guys, because, I mean, there's going to be times probably where it's moved more than once. Not all tickets are going to happen like this, but there's going to be instances where maybe it's been moved around quite a few times.
This is interesting. And user experience here. Like, I'll try to click the button. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Eventually, it looks like they're going to pull this out over here, I would guess. But
Yeah.
All right, so we'll save. So let's just double check what we're doing here. Allow tickets to re-enroll after completing the workflow. Tickets will re-enroll when they are manually re-enrolled or they meet the enrollment criteria when any of the following changes occur.
Yep.
Leave both of these boxes checked.
Correct.
Okay. Click save. All right.
And then with this one, same thing. You probably don't want to try to enroll any previous tickets, assuming that this isn't your first time building out the pipeline.
Click next. And we could skip here if we wanted to. Sure, that doesn't create any bad habits at all.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So we've got everything built out in the back end. From here, it's really just, you built it. Now, how do you want to represent it?
Right.
There's a few things that I recommend doing from a good standpoint, which is making sure that the views are enabled so anyone can see it. Making sure the properties for some of these are locked so people can see them, but they can't edit them because we don't want any more data manipulation in that term of, if we had that, then we'd just be having more data manipulation and issues possibly. So again, the goal of this is to prevent that. We want people to be able to see the changes, but the only way it's going to change is if they follow the process of updating it. And then anything that you think needs to be changed because maybe there was a slight discrepancy, you can, as a super admin, do that yourself. And that should only happen so often. So.
Right. And before we'll touch on permissions here, I just noticed we had a question. So this also works to make email marketing flows. I think we need a little more context to the question, but if we're talking about the workflows, that's definitely one of the most common uses of the workflow tools. So if you want to add a little more context to the question, Jennifer, be happy to dig into that.
Yeah, I mean, anything with a close date, anything that you use in the pipeline with the close date that could change, this could apply for. Yep. Like if because you can in HubSpot, you could see push rates, let's say for your sales team, but in a report, you're not seeing what the previous close date was. This could apply. You got CSMs that we're talking about backlogging, but what if they're pushing it out? You got CSMs that keep pushing up an upsell. Let's say it's been 5 pushes and it's to this date now. There's a conversation to be had, and this could help with that.
Right.
So this, this could apply for almost anything that has a date.
Right. Anything where there's like, in a lot of cases, you need to have some level of manual data management because you don't want to lock the teams down too much. Stuff does happen. Things need to change. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be paying attention to when and why. So I like what we've done here to kind of just, we're stamping that information into the record book. And this is where we can say, okay, instead of everyone can view and edit, we allow everyone to view.
Everyone instead. To view, yep.
All right, so we just change these real quick. And I've got to say, like, I'm not like the super duper, like, certified up the wazoo admin in other systems, but I've worked enough in other systems to know that stuff like this just does not work as easily as I just did it. So the ability to manage all of this in this place, it took a while. Yeah, it took a while for HubSpot to get here, but a lot of that while was figuring out why it's so crappy in all the other systems and figuring out better ways, better user experience to do it in platform. So real easy to just lock these down in a way that people can still view them, but can't edit them.
Yep.
So at this point, you said maybe we want to make them visible on the ticket record,
Yeah.
and maybe some views. So we'll roll over
But
to the ticket record, do some record customization, and just make a simple. We'll just do it. Where do you like to put it? Left side or middle?
left side.
All right. So we'll add it over here.
Because people go between overview and activities.
Yep.
I like the activity section more, so I find just having it on the left side is the best for me personally.
Let's see. I'm just gonna call this change log for now.
Yeah. And if you guys have multiple sections, I always recommend maybe an emoji with it, just so people can visually snapshot and understand what it is. My team has absolutely loved it. It's just a nice way for people to instantaneously see something and recognize it. Just a little pro tip
All
that
right.
I like to do.
I like that.
We don't have to do it. I was just saying.
We're doing it.
Okay, so let's see.
This is where I usually go. This is where I usually go when I need an emoji.
What are you calling it? Change log.
Change log.
So maybe you could do, what I like to do for emojis sometimes is I just look up, like refresh, like something that would possibly represent it, and then emoji. I just Google it.
Okay.
Or even change sometimes here works. Something like that.
Yeah. So let's do this one.
I use that for the renewal pipeline, Let's see. Yeah. Perfect.
Wow. I did not know we could put emojis there.
I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. I was like, I saw someone do it. I'm like, I could do that, but it's not super official looking, I'd say. But then I put it in and people say thank you. I don't even have to fully read the section. Right. I just instantaneously know.
Yeah, I've been learning so much about like iconography and communication. My nephew, who didn't always speak English, he does now. He's 7.5. When his English wasn't so great, we would play Minecraft together, and that taught me a lot about how powerful just pictures for everything.
It's true,
right? So now, if we go back and look at our ticket here, we've got a change log right up top.
Look at that.
Beautiful. And this is where, if we got the admin view, maybe they have the change log right here. If it's, maybe a different stakeholder, maybe it's below. So love playing around with different views like that.
Should we see if it works?
We should.
Yeah. Let's see if we missed anything. All you literally have to do for the first iteration is change the close date.
All right.
Which I think for this one, maybe we make a new ticket just because it's already been created. I think it still accommodates for it. I've pretty much tried to break it multiple times, and it seems to work under most situations, but that's just for the sake of it.
All righty. And if you have, how do you like to differentiate? Like if you have the same ticket on the same day, is that the names always going to be the same?
So for tickets, I like to keep it clean, Chris, because when people are looking at, your right side view, the stuff gets really sometimes the ticket wording is just insanity. So I have everything now say the bracket and then the company name. And if it's inactive, then it has inactive after it's been closed on the ticket.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and create this one. And now I'll put today's date.
Mm-hmm. And another thing, Chris, I don't know if you noticed, but they recently changed it where if you close a ticket, it doesn't have to necessarily set that day.
Right. Yep. That's why I was going to try it differently here, but I was like, maybe it's not set up to do that. So we'll just won't mess around. Go right to the source.
Should we see if the workflow is getting pushed through? Because maybe we could see it from the actual workflow perspective.
Okay, yeah. We got some enrollment here, so that's good.
Cool.
Where do you like to go to see that?
Let's do initial entry just to see if it got pushed through properly. Yep, one
Enrollment
ticket in
history.
action. It's got that delay right there. You can see it right there.
Wow. Didn't know it was showing up here now. They're making this stuff easier and easier.
Yeah, that's something I actually like to do, the delay sometimes just for testing, guys, just because you get to see what's in action easily.
That's
Otherwise,
great.
you have to click on the enrollment, which is fine, but you could
That's a
also
great
start
idea.
seeing when they start getting hit. You could start seeing go one ticket in action, 3, 4, 5. Especially if you just turn on the workflow and activate a bunch. So
Yep.
it's really cool to see. And then it should be updated. So if we go to the record now, refresh it.
And so we are looking for
What do you think?
current and date of update, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Alrighty.
Drum roll. Did you look at that?
Auto magical.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that you set the close date for today, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now let's manipulate data again. You decided, okay, they talked about churning, but they turned and their contract date was meant to be 5 months from now, right? But all of a sudden they decided to turn off their credit card midterm. Their churn is not now for the renewal date, it's for whenever that time frame was, depending on what the company uses. So for this one, why don't we push it back?
Okay. So
But I
actually,
think we will have to set the workflow for 0 days because we are breaking the rule of if you update it past the day.
right.
So we might just have to quickly just set it as 0, and I think it'll work, Chris, for the workflow. But otherwise, we have to wait a minute or a whole 24
I
hours.
think we can work it in.
And it's funky because when you update, so if you go up, so we set those to 0 days. It doesn't show anything when you save it, but I think it works. So just put in 0. And then let's do the same thing for the other one as well. Don't do that yet. We've got to do it for the other criteria as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that one as well.
More than 0.
And it should work.
All right. So you got that updated. And this actually should have happened last month. So I'll just put May 28th and save. And this will be a great way to close the show. I mean, I just love, you just can't underestimate if you've only had to work with HubSpot, consider yourself lucky, because this kind of stuff, just the ability to make all these changes across platform. Obviously, you don't want every user being able to do this. But, and when you're in a small company and you got a lot of hats, it's nice to be able to just move around freely without, needing to have this development or IT systems team, on call or having to ask them to do stuff for you. It's just,
you got a superpower with this.
Everything's easier. It literally is a superpower.
So now, did we update it? We did, didn't we?
I think we did.
Yeah, it just might not trigger just because of the oddity. It does work. We could also just push it through if you just auto enroll, but it might be because of the 0 days thing. But again, guys, if you do have it set for 1 day, it will work. So what we could do is just manually enroll it, just for the heck of it. So choose individual. And again, this is why I love the brackets, because I just do RET and the company name, and I know where it is.
All right. So we're enrolling there. And then we will be wrapping up. We've got 2 tickets in action because I picked 2 tickets.
I'm guessing one is going to push through and one probably. Oh no, they both should because it's still 0 days. So.
Yeah. So while we wait, I mean, this has been great stuff, man. I think this is where it's like just the hardest part of HubSpot right now is understanding how all the pieces fit together. Because once you understand, like we literally did this in like half an hour, and now it's going to change the kind of insights that our team needs, that just increase the value. And these are the kinds of little things that when you can do this for a leadership team, like all of a sudden they care about HubSpot, right? Like
Right.
sometimes it takes a while to get there, but once you get there the first time, now it's like, okay, we care about HubSpot. We're going to resource it properly. Buy-in's going to be easier, all these things. So this is really,
Yeah.
I love what you're doing here, and just the
Yeah.
idea, like to even get here, where like now that we know what the out of the box properties are doing and what we need to see on the reports and in the views, like easy setup of properties, easy setup of workflows. And now life gets easier every day. No more digging in the data. Like so much time gets spent digging in data. Stuff like this is why, the tried and true executives want to just pull everything out on a CSV and do it all themselves. And it's just like we can avoid that in system. So we should try to. So this is really cool, man.
Absolutely. And, I wish we could show some reporting, but if you guys want to see how the reports look, you go to revopsrob.substack.com and you can see the full article. If you scroll down to the bottom, again, it has the instructions for how to build it up. It's free to look at. You could start seeing how you can look at on a report, right? And start seeing, how to mathematically see the change as well. Not just, oh, here are the ones that are changed, or where it was previously, and you could start mapping it out. Here's our current churn. Here's what it was previously. This is what it is now, and this is when it was updated. So you guys
Yeah.
want to check that out, go for it. But again, there's plenty of things you could do with these
Yeah, and
properties as well.
we'll throw that link in the comments after the show, but we can see here that we successfully automatically changed the close dates, and we have the previous logged. So now we can say, hey, there was a month difference in between these, and help make decisions accordingly. Thanks so much, Rob. It's been awesome. We'll have to have you on again to look at those reports, I think.
Of course, this was fun. We'll talk. Okay.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
being on. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday and a good weekend.
So while you guys are thinking about change logs and you wish you could see, this historical data, find that opportunity and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.